Hello, COP 1000 students, Dennis here. Just going to show you a couple different examples using loops, using functions, and so on. So the purpose of this program is to display this menu. So a menu would be nothing but a bunch of prints. This top line right here is the label on top of the menu. And this little trick of double quote, new line, times 50. I've looked high and low for a way to clear the screen in Python. If you figure it out, let me know. I'll give you some bonus points. But this is a way to fake it out. Kind of moves things up out of the way. So just a bunch of prints, and I pushed the menu up after this last print. That's that. So here's my program. My program starts with, we'll talk about this later, with a flag variable called quit. And I'm going to loop, well, not quit. So as soon as they select quit, I'm going to stop. So not quit is true, so I'm going to go in this loop until quit equals true, and then not true would be false, and the loop would stop. So the first thing this program does is it sets the variable choice equal to something so that I can run one of these different functions. So it calls this value returning function called getSelection. Let's scroll down and take a look at that. So here's getSelection. GetSelection, simple as this. First thing getSelection does is call that display menu function. So a function can call a function. And then it displays on the screen, enter your selection, and stores it into this variable called result. And then it returns result back up to the caller. So it returns result back up and puts it into choice. So the next thing I do is I have this if-else if, and I test to see if it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. Otherwise, if it's not a 1, 2, 3, 5, or 6, I display this message, tell them it's invalid, and make them pick again. You may say, what is this pause here? Well, this pause is my fake way of having the screen halt. And here it is. I wrote this little function since there isn't a pause function in Python. And I just said input, press any key to continue with a new line and a new line on both sides, and put it in this X, and I did nothing with it. So it just displays this. As soon as they press enter, I continue on my execution. So now choice might equal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or something else. Let's go down this list. We'll start with 1. So choice number 1 calls a function called getANumber, which is going to return a value and place it in this variable called number. Now let's talk about this variable called number. So the question is, if they don't press number 1, but they try to pass that number into choice number 2, 3, 4, or 5, what does number equal? Well, I'm going to default number to a special keyword called none. None would be nothing. Most languages, other than Python, they have a keyword called null, which is kind of the same thing. If I'm testing for none, I do not use the equal sign. I use is. If number is none. If number is not none. Okay, so now I may or may not have pressed 1. Let's just see what 1 does. GetANumber. GetANumber. So all it does is say, please enter a number, stores a result, and returns it. Let's take a look at case 2. Choice, when choice equals 2. Raise a number to a power. So I'm going to take that number, if I got one, pass it into this function. So I'm either passing whatever number was from GetANumber, or I'm passing none. So let's go down to raise a power. Notice they're in alphabetical order, so raise a power is last. So here I am in this function, raise to a power. Notice it's not a value returning function because I don't return a value here. The first thing I do is I check before I raise something to a power to see if I have something to raise to a power. So if that number is none, I print a message, go back and enter a number first. I pause so they can read it, and I return here. I don't do any of this. If that is not true, then I'm down in here. So I say, I got to get the power to raise number 2. So this is a prompt, and I get the power. And then I say the number, let's say 5, raised to the power of 2 equals, what is that, 125. When I'm done, control goes back up. Control goes back up. It would go back to the next line, which would bring me all the way down to the end of the while and back up to the top. Well, quit has not changed, so I'm going to get another choice. And let's look at even or odd. Even or odd. I do that same test to see if that number has, if 1 has been pressed. Otherwise, I do this test. If number is evenly divisible by 2, it's even, otherwise it's odd. I leave, go back up, get a selection. Let's take a look at number 4, display a message. Number times. So display Dennis 5 times. Display Dennis, whatever this says. So let's go back to display message. So here I am, same test to make sure none equals a value. I get a message, which would be a string. This is a string, whatever the user types. And now I loop number of times, and I display that message that many times. Now, I think I've shown this once before, how I concatenate the period next to the number. So I'm not going to show that again. Here's something cute that I just wanted to show you. I'm going to take that same message and I'm going to call a special function with strings, and that's called len. Len, if you Google it, you'll see it. It's a built-in function. It returns the number of items in a container. In this case, the number of characters in a string. So if I typed in Dennis, message would equal 6, length would equal 6, and I'm going to loop while I is in the range of 0 to 6. So what's this doing? This is printing out the line number, and then it's printing out each character of the string on top of each other. Let me run this so you can see that what's really happening here. So here's the menu. I'm going to display a message, which is 4. So I'm going to type 4. First thing it says is go back and enter a number first. So I'm going to go back and enter a number, pressing 1. I'm going to type in a number, 55. Now I'll press 4 to display the string. Give me the name of the string. So there's the word hello 55 times. And this is what I told you. It would take the string, flip it up vertically, and just write it one time along with the positions in the string. More about that later. Back to the menu. How about prime or not prime? So I'm going to press. So I'm going to check to see if it's prime or not prime. I'm going to check to see if it's prime or not prime. Number 5 is prime. Let's do it again. New number. Let's do 45. Is that a prime number? I don't believe it is. Let's check. Or 45 is not a prime number. If you don't know what a prime number is, Google it. Let's check 77. Is that a prime number? Nope. Let's go into code and take a look at that code for prime numbers. I use a flag. Let me move this out of the way. So all we see is prime number. White space doesn't matter. Okay, so there's my function prime. I set a flag to false. Here's that test to see if they entered a value, not. So now I come in and I say, okay, I know I have a value, and the fact are all numbers less than 2 are not prime. So I need to make sure the numbers 2 or bigger. If it is, I throw the flag to true. I start counting at 2, and I say, well, 2 is less than whatever the number is divided by 2, because I only have to check up to half of the way of the number. And I make sure I test that, and well, prime is true. I do this test, and if any single time I can divide a number evenly by something other than itself or 1, then the value is not prime, so prime is false. So I do that loop. I break out of that loop when I tested all the numbers up to the halfway point, or I stop the very first time I found it to be not prime. I test whether the prime is true or false, and I print. Kind of cool. I'm going to go back and let's and the phone ring. Okay, I'm back. Just going to summarize. Always have a header on top of your code. Main comes first. You don't need this line after main, but I like it. I like this line after main. Just because main is special, and now I could see that anything below that line is my programmer-defined functions. Down here, these functions do not have to be, but I recommend that you keep them in alphabetical order so it's easy to find them. Remember your indentation, your spacing. Don't need this line down here, but I kind of like it too. And main is the one and only function that I call, and it kicks everything else off. Show you something else that's kind of cool, and then we'll go away. In PyCharm, you can create a project, and in that project, you could start to save all of your work, and you could bring them back one at a time, run them one at a time, and so on. So it's a nice little compact way of keeping things together. Okay, 12 minutes, 48 seconds. See you in the next video.